Hello there, this is Brent, and I'm going to go over some of the basics to get started in GameMaker Studio. So when you create your first project, over on the left-hand side are the different types of objects and things you can have: sprites, sounds, backgrounds, paths. We'll get into a lot of those later in different tutorials. Today we're going to go over just getting started with your first room. So one of the first things you do is when you get here, if you actually try to start a game, it says the game must have at least one room to run. So we're gonna create that room and get something that we can actually display on the screen. GameMaker Studio makes it pretty easy to get started and at least get something visually to look at. So we're going to clicking on different items. You can click on them, and if you right click, it'll bring up a sub-menu, a context menu, depending on what you may be clicking on. So if you go right click, you can add existing room from a different project, create a group. Maybe you want to group a bunch of rooms together, sort by name. So since we've just started our project, we're going to call it the first room, but we're going to create a room. So it brings up a sub-menu or a window. And this is our first game. So we'll stretch out, look at the different things we have. So to move around in the window, you press your middle mouse button. At least in the Windows platform when you're developing. So we have a name. We'll call this room, first room, or room first. So it's by default comes up with a 1024 by 768 room. Most monitors anymore have a 16 by 9 ratio. So we're gonna create. So for right now, we'll just create something that large. And see what happens. So one of the nice things in GameMaker Studio is you don't actually have to save the object first before you can run it. It'll do that compiling for you on the fly. So here we have our first room. It appeared. Can't really do anything. It's nice gray, large. One of the problems, though, that you'll find in GameMaker, or just in game development in general, is whether you're a small team or individual trying to make a little game, you're going to find out one of the biggest hurdles is context, being able to develop enough content. So if we were actually going to make a game that's 1920 and by 1080, we're going to have a lot of more high quality content. One of the features for game makers is to be able to have it in a different size. So we're going to make our room is actually just going to be the size of the screen that we're going to want. We can change that later, and we'll go into that in a different tutorial. And so let's scale this down a little bit, maybe a quarter of the size. So if we get out a calculator, so if we take 1920 divided by 4, we get 480. And 1080 divided by 4, and we're going to get, it's the wrong one, 1080 divided by 4, You get about 270. Nice small room. I think we're gonna change the background. There's a background tab that allows you different colors. You can create images and get those in the background if you want. We're gonna create a darker blue color. Maybe a dark gray. So we'll run it again this time. We'll have a small window that comes up. So here's our small window. It's pretty small. So let's run that one more time. So one of the things is the only way to get out of this is clicking an X. So if we really want this to be like a full screen game, we're going to need some way to actually get out of the game. So we're going to create a controller. So we're going to go over here to the objects and do a create object. And generally you'll see a lot of people have different ways of naming these, but to keep them straight, we'll use obj for our object. And we're going to do a controller for the room. And this is just an object that's going to exist in the room that we can assign code to or assign events or actions. So we created a controller, we can put it in the room. So over here on the Objects tab, under there's an Objects to add to with the left mouse button. You bring it down, and every object that you create will be listed down here. We're going to pick a controller, and we're going to put it just outside the room so we don't have to worry about... I think I got two of those there. Because I created several of them. Alright, we just want one. Oh, I guess I have two. So one way is if you want to know how many objects that you might happen to have in your room, go up here. In the middle, there's an instance ordering. You can bring that up, and it'll show you every object you might have in your room. That way you can go to it without having to worry about it. So we're just going to remove one of those. Click OK, because we don't really need, we just need one of these. But you're going to be like, well, you just put something in the room and it's not going to do anything. Yeah, it's not going to be visible in the room. It doesn't actually do anything, but we're going to make it do something in here. Second, I keep creating these. So we have our object. We're going to actually have it do something. So we go back to our object. We're going to add an event. So we'd have different, in GameMaker, you have different events and actions. One of the events, there's different events, create, destroy. So what we're really looking for is some way to get out of the game. So we're going to look at our create key press event. We could use keyboard, but we're just going to do like a key press, key down. And it'll bring up, if you click on that, it'll bring the different types of buttons you can actually use. So we're going to go pick escape for right now. So when we press escape, so that's the event, we want an action to happen. So something needs to happen. So in GameMaker, there's different actions you can bring up and perform. There's move actions, main, a couple main. There's a control. We can modify things with score. extra or draw. So one of the things we are going to do is we're just going to pretty much all my tutorials are going to use GML or Game Maker language. It gives you a little more control over everything, so hopefully it won't get too confusing. But under the control, there's a code where you can execute code. We're going to throw the code in there, and it'll pop up a window. The other thing is we see this execute a piece of code that's not very descriptive. So like if you're trying to go through all your objects, you'd be like, oh, I press escape and it executes a piece of code. Well, if you don't really, one thing I really recommend doing is commenting at the top of the code so you can actually see what's being done. So if we hit 2//, we can make a comment in the code, but if we do a third, this is if you want to just comment the code. So we're going to say this is end game. So that doesn't really do anything for us. It doesn't. Still, we'll have to comment that. Look in each one. We don't really want that to happen. It makes it hard to find what we're doing. We're going to have add an extra slash, and it's going to change our action. So now when we're looking through our different objects and look at the different events that occur, we can see, oh, okay, we pressed escape, and now the action's going to perform a code, some sort of code event, and the code's going to say it's an end game. So the actual end game, go ahead and end that out. And because we have this controller that exists in the room that we've added, it doesn't have to be visible. So we'll run the game now. And if we press escape, it'll go away. So we have something that's in the room will fire when the event, which is the pressing escape, and it'll perform our action, which is the game end. So now we have a really, really boring game. Haven't really gotten anything going yet. So let's create something to show. So we go up here to the sprite. We're going to create a little sprite. If you right click on it, you can create a sprite. We can load sprites or edit sprites, and we'll go into different tutorials later about how to get all these different types of sprites in there. Right now we're going to do an edit sprite, and it'll bring up a window for editing a sprite, but as you can see, there's nothing there because there's no sprite. We create a new sprite. We're going to make this small because our screen is it's very small. I'm going to create a real sprite real quick here. So you create the size, double click on it to edit it, to actually edit it. Because before if you have multiple images, you'll see all the different images in the sprite, and then you can pick which one you actually want to edit. Since we only have one, you double click on it again, and then that's when you actually edit it. So we'll use the mouse wheel and scroll in. Let's make a little character. Let's take us probably a minute or two. Put him in the middle of the screen. Give him a nose. Give him an eye. Don't really like that hair. Give him a little bit of a high forehead there. Okay, so we got a guy. If you press D, you'll get the pixels you can draw with. These are the different tools. You'll have to get kind of familiar with how they work. We'll give our guy a little body here. E will switch it to an eraser so you can get rid of things pretty quickly. C is to pick colors. Okay, so we got 2 arms, and then we're going to put some pants on him. Give him some legs here. Give him some red shoes for fun. Make some baggy pants there. That's good. Wow, is he small? Click a preview. He's very small. Oh, that's alright. One of the things we're going to do is we'll just center him. Oh. So let's go back to him again. So we're going to name the sprite. I'm going to name him Boy. So go back to our room. Can we add him? No, we can't add him yet. We need to create an object that's for the boy. So we'll right click and create an object. Down here we'll click a sprite the boy, and then we'll create the object which is the boy. So we can now pick the boy. I'm going to just put him in the room. I'm going to run our game. Wow, is he small. But one of the nice things about GameMaker is you can have it scale to full screen as one of the options. So we'll get out of the game. I guess we don't really need 2 guys there. So under global game settings, if you open that, there's an option under Windows, and there's a graphics tab. It says start in full screen mode. So we're going to start a game in full screen mode. So we'll run a game. And we did the pre-work to make sure we could have escape to get out of the game, because otherwise there's no way to really escape, get out without doing a lot of Windows manipulation. So here's our little guy. He looks really, really blurry. So that's actually a feature of GameMaker as well. That's an option you can turn on and off. So we'll hit escape and get out of there. So if we go back into our global game settings, so what that feature is interpolate colors between pixels. So it is trying to make it a smooth looking sprite for the game. So if you're rendering in a higher res, you want it a little bit smoother looking and not so pixely, you can use that. But it's really only if you're going to try to get close, but not quite what you need. So if we take that interpolate off, and go back in and run, we get our pixel, a nice little scaled up guy, and he's right there in the middle. Can't do anything with him yet, but he's right there. So escape. So really, that's how you get a room started. I know there's no real game there at this point in time. So I think we'll just get him to at least move around before we finish up here. So if we go over here back to the boy object, and we were talking about performing different events. So we're going to add an event, and we could say, oh, we can create a key press, but that's not really efficient for what we're trying to do. So every time a step is the number of cycles in it, basically your frames per second that you can set up. It's not it's a capped in GameMaker. So like if you say my game has 15 or 30 steps per second, then you're looking at 30 times this code will be executed in a second. And then if you say 60, it'll be 60 times a second. But your draw event will be executed as many times as it can during that same period. So really the step is every logic step. So it's more of a fixed rate depending on your computer's speed. So we're going to create a step, and you can create them in different parts, beginning steps, or before you do a step, end step. Most of the time you just do a step. So we're going to throw this over here. We're going to do movement. So we're going to there's one way to do it. So there's a couple ways. There's many ways you can do this. You can do a bunch of if statements. If you do the right, we'll do I guess the longer way. It's easier to read and keep straight. If key, all right. If you start typing out and hit wait or hit Control Space, it'll bring up the list of different events that are available. So the one we're actually looking for is a keyboard check. So where it's going to check to see if this button that we're looking for is pressed. So we're going to do a keyboard check pressed. And we're going to say we're going to look at it's a virtual key, VK. A virtual key will be a lot of the different ones. You can so we could do VK right, R for right. We could say or. There's it's ORD for, I don't even remember off the top of my head what it stands for, but that will be for if you want to also use for your keyboard. So we'll do like a D. So the ordinal, I do believe. Then we are going to perform some action. So we're going to say. So in GameMaker, we have your sprite will be on the screen. It has an X, which is right and left, and Y up and down. So we're going to say it's if we're going to move right, we're going to add a 1 pixel every time. It's probably a little slow, so we'll probably just do 2 pixels. So this is really the number of pixels that's going to move the character. We'll actually just highlight all this and do it again. I think I have there. I'm going to make A. I believe that's correct. Oh, before we do that, I made a mistake. I'm gonna make sure he goes left. So this is actually every time I do it, so it's going to be jagged. I probably need to just keyboard check. Yep. And we'll show you a more efficient way to do that in a second here. So what that was doing was every time the pressed event, so I press it during one cycle, it's going to execute one time. So now if I just hold the button down, he'll move right and he'll move left, depending on which way we're going. So a much more efficient way to do that would be, we'll call it direction. Move X. So this is where we're going to move. And what we're going to do is, so if either one of these gets pressed, we're going to get a value of 1. So if we're going to subtract it, if it's to the left, so what that's going to do is when we're pressing right, we'll get a 1. If we're pressing left, we'll get a -1. And if we're pressing both at the same time, we'll get a 0 because they're canceling out. So, and what we'll do move X times the number of pixels. So instead of that large statement, we just got 1 there. Yep, so both buttons, nothing happens, right, left, so you can get something done. So one of the other things we can do before we wrap this up for right now, we'll go ahead and get him moving around anywhere on the screen. So we're going to copy this. We're going to make it a Y. So in GameMaker, the Y is down. So that would correspond to S. So we're going to go in the positive direction with that and go up. We're going to do a W. The other thing what I want to do is, if we're going to keep working on this a little bit and different things, is I'm going to add an extra event. So when this guy is created, we're going to initialize a character or variables. One of the things I want to do is create a move rate. How fast is that guy going? So later on, you can actually do things to him to slow him down. So we're going to do a move rate. So what we're doing is figuring out if we're right, left, up, or down, and then we're changing the X position of the character. So now we can freely move around on the screen and get things accomplished. Alright, I think that's it for today. Until next time, good luck coding. Bye.